They just don't know how to fucking peel for anybody. He's going balls, super balls deep. Like, am I a freedom-loving American? Well, I think freedom has a heavy responsibility behind it. I don't think that most people here in America actually require or have the ability to uphold their own personal freedoms. That's why we have like a standing army. That's why we have like the National Guard since 1774 or 1636 technically. But if you take a look in the back right there at Doug, okay, I guess this side is easier for me to point. If you look at Doug, that's the great old American flag on top of a uniform. So I would argue, yes, I absolutely do love freedoms, especially the ones that are provided by America. Because you boil it down to the simple idea that I'm able to work all day and then be able to fuck off and play video games at night. There's not very many places like that. Especially because my work is not grueling and backbreaking. So, this dude took fucking Luden's companion. But everything comes at a cost. Don't let anybody tell you any different. There's absolutely nothing that is free. But that's why I also prefaced that freedom comes with a heavy burden of responsibility. And that's a trade-off. To be able to keep your freedom, you have to be able to fight for your freedom, right? So, like, these guys right here, I got this nice little, this plate, pewter plate right here. You can't really see it because it's pretty far. Maybe if I change the instance, you'll be able to see it a little better. Nope, still no. Well, that's the signing of the Declaration of Independence, baby, 1776. So you kind of run into this issue that, sorry, you run into an issue that most of the time, yes, very seldomly do you run into a situation where freedom doesn't cost the ultimate price of violence, which would be like death, right? That's really what the final price of violence is. Yeah. But what is that? What's the saying? The quote? It's about tyranny. The roots of the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed with the blood of tyrants and patriots. Like, it's pretty serious and heavy shit when you think about it, especially when you break it down into the idea, like, philosophically, what does it mean to be free? Well, simply, it means, like, if you break down, and this is really how I view it too. When someone tells me I have to do something or I can't do something, I break it down into what our forefathers so eloquently put in the Bill of Rights, and before that, the Declaration of Independence itself. That we hold these truths to be self-evident, right? That every man born from God has the right for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yeah? But there's nothing else in the world that doesn't have to pay for the price of freedom, right? Think of like every animal that lives out in a field or under a tree or in a cave, right? Troglophile, troglodyne, whatever it is. Like, every animal that lives out there, they have to forage their own food. They have to hunt their own food. They have to dive into all the murky depths. Like, think of a gazelle. A gazelle would be an excellent point here. Hold on. Gazelle chase. Like, this is an excellent point. This is the price of freedom. That's a cheetah, right? And he wants to get his food. How does he get his food? He has to go and fucking chase down this little gazelle. Both that gazelle and that cheetah are free. They are 100% free. But the price is to have that freedom. You're gonna either be the chase or chaser. And at the same time, that gazelle eats all the grass he wants. He doesn't have anybody telling him what he has to do. He's got He's got no taxes. He's got no overlords. He's got no HOA coming down saying like, oh, your grass isn't cut exactly at 1 1/4 inch. We're gonna fine you $50, and you have to go work. The average American, I should say, has to go work 4 hours basically just to compensate for the amount of money that they lost because some dickhead got upset about his grass length. Like, you know what I mean? So there's a whole bunch of stuff. But freedom extracts a heavy toll. But there's something that we always forget. Or I guess you don't say. I guess I shouldn't say forget, right? There's how I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it because it's a very delicate issue in my brain, right? What ends up happening is we do have all the freedoms. But we do, more recently, I guess you could say, so I don't think that, I think that's kind of like pearl clutching, right? You run into this concept that I can't believe they're dying, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? If you take that word, like, the killing needs to stop. It's like, yeah, it does. But what are we going to do to precipitate that? Precipitate? Or precipitate? Precipitate. What are we going to do to precipitate that piece, right? Like, somebody has to give up what I would argue is an unequitable amount of ground. Any other way. So you have to basically earn the monopoly of violence to beat that person out of whatever. You know what I'm trying to say, at least? Like the concept of what I'm saying? Because eventually it comes to sorry, I'm thinking at the same time as well, trying to play. It comes down to, like, we'll go back before the Israeli war, we'll go back before the Ukraine invasion, we'll go back before the Donbass, we'll go back before the Bosnia-Herzegovina Civil War, we can go back before 2001, we can go back before Desert Storm, we can go, like, you know what I mean? We can just continuously track back in history, like, all this violence. And ultimately, the outcome of almost all of that violence has always been one person either A, killing everyone, or B, kicking everyone out, right? So that's where I agree with you almost 100%, right? So let's take, well, I'll put it this way. We can take the most recent, not the most recent, but the hospital bombing, right? It's dangerous to use this as an argument. We'll take the hospital bombing. If they had hit the hospital instead of the parking lot, right? My opinion would change. Like, come on, dude, you just bombed a fucking hospital? I don't care if this tunnel's underground. There are people in there who do not want to participate in this fight. There are people in there who are trying to live, get health care, and trying to make their lives better. But because where it landed, in the parking lot, right? But and this is, I understand that almost certainly it was a misfired rocket, right? This is a meat stick. I'm eating at the same time and drinking lemonade. That it was a misfire, but I'm working on the assumption that no, it's been disproven. It's a rocket, right, from Israel. If that had happened, my opinion would be different. It'd be like, man, yeah, but that's kind of fucked up. There are things you don't do, right? But on the flip side, using civilians as body shields is like, or hiding munitions and stuff in civilian homes, like that type of stuff is also top tier scummy, and there's no way around that. Like, it is top tier scummy. Don't do it, or Israel's gonna fucking bomb your houses that you're complaining about. You know what I mean? So, I though don't really have a pony in the conflict. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I wish I did. I wish I had a little bit more. Ooh, good flash, Gingina. I need to get back over here just in case they... Oh. Oh. You know what I mean? So I kind of... I'm at an impasse. Because I had a lot of friends. We'll go back to the Ukrainian war. Ukraine-Russia conflict, right? I got a lot of friends who have, like, family and shit over there. Like, actual family. Look at these stupid bombers. So yes, but here's the thing: is they have to help rebuild. You know what I mean? It's one of those situations where if Israel just like, okay, well, it's up to you guys to rebuild now. Like it's kind of fucked. You know what I mean? Oh, they're gonna get me! Ah, he's gonna kill me! I think the difficulty you're gonna run into is... what is a good government, and how do they... Hold on, give me a second. How do they establish the government, A, and how do they ensure that... Good government, A, and how do they ensure... And how do they ensure that, because there's a lot of Israelis that hold some pretty bad views of Palestinians. You know what I mean? Basically, it's like, you know, I got a better example. Let's look into American history because I'm pretty good at American history. Let's kind of take it into the verse of. Let's go see if they're down there. Let's take it into the verse of American history. If we look at what happened. We can't really use Japan as an example, because we went scorched earth policy on them, and we did some horrible shit. You know what I mean? So I was gonna use our own civil war as an example. Okay, if we look at what we did post Civil War, okay, we did not do a good job ensuring that people had jobs. Had, especially when it comes to like north-south relations. Okay, we did not make sure that anybody was prepared. Am I making sense? I shouldn't have started the game because we're in mid conversation, but that makes me the asshole. But. Ah, he flashed. So basically, there was like, if you look back to the Civil War, it's not kind of, it is very similar to what's happening right now. Okay, and this is my justification of why I think that. Some of the biggest issues that happened in the Civil War were revolved around abolitionists. People, what is it? Abolitionists return. I see what the failures of like trying to have Israel put in a new government by themselves. Okay, so you run into you run the risk of this dude's just so horny. You run the risk of there being inequitable laws like enacted in between how. Inequitable laws of how both Israeli and Palestinians are treated, right? And what ends up happening is you get this massive downturn of like participation in you know what I'm trying to say? This guy didn't just quit bot lane, he quit all the lanes. I'll tank it, whatever. You get these massive, we have these massive inequities of laws, right? They were supposed to get X amount of mules, and they were supposed to get acreage, and they were supposed to get all these benefits to help them, like, basically pull themselves out of this really shitty struggle of what's happening because of slavery, right? And I feel like that oppression, if we don't do something to, like, properly influence the way you know what I'm trying to say? We end up with this really, really bad. This really, look at him go, man. We end up with this really bad 100%. I do 100% agree with you that they really do need change, right? But I don't think that giving one party. I mean, you could do the friendly eco-communist thing and call it a re-education, right? But what ends up happening is if we don't end up letting them build it, that's like the biggest. You know what I'm trying to say? If we don't end up letting them build it, what ends up happening is, like, when we leave, they don't really have a buy-in. Does that make sense? If they don't have buy-in, like, what ends up happening is, like, we lose all diplomatic, like, negotiation power. Because we kind of air ourselves out into this idea that, oh, they just came to fuck shit up and now they're gone. You know what I mean? And we cannot do that. So, my biggest argument would be, well, not my argument. My first reply would be, yeah, I agree. We need to have some form of, like, re-education. Like, hey, if you look, like, this is what has happened. These are the bad ideas. I gotta get Randuin's now. Boom, baby! You see that shoot? So, and like the Constitution part, that makes sense to me, right? You want to have them get some sort of, like, not bylaw put in place, you know what I mean? But something that's kind of like, all right, everybody gets this thing. Like, no, you're not allowed to say they don't. The agreement has to be like yippity yoppity or whatever, right? And that's that. But it's gotta be. Don't fucking ping me, dude. Yes. Most importantly, like I feel like it's a little bit more than just rules for the government, right? What I was trying to say earlier is we have. I just realized I left on intermission, but that's fine. It makes your chat on the stream chat pop up a lot better this way, anyways. What it ends up doing is there's two types of, like, there's like the actual fabrics of the government and the rules, and then there's like the more nuanced social contract, right? So, for instance, there's no law saying that you have to give an old lady on the bus your seat. But the social contract is kind of like, but you do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. One of the biggest things is... Ooh. So that's kind of like that's kind of where I sit with it. I don't want to force any. I want like blanket laws: don't rape, don't murder, don't steal. People who own property, you can't just take people's property because they look different than you. That type of shit, right? And then once that's established, then you start like kind of rebuilding. Fucking die already, dude. And then this cornball flies up. I gotta save my flash for that fucking cornball next time. You know what I mean? He was just sitting there waiting for me. Hey, I would love you to. I'm actually gonna clip this entire thing. I'm gonna make a video out of it. I'm gonna put it on YouTube. You're gonna be my #1 star. So you're gonna. Now I'm gonna make a playlist specifically for you. I appreciate you stopping by, man.